and good evening, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am most grateful for being invited to speak to you this evening, both as an African and in my capacity as prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. It is indeed a privilege and an honor for me to be in such distinguished company. I would like to commend The Voice magazine for making this event possible. Having received an award myself 2 years ago, I can personally attest to these events being a real celebration of the achievement of Africans, both on the continent and abroad. However, it is not only these events that create such positive trajectories for African people. I believe The Voice to be integral to the life of the African diaspora here in the Netherlands, helping to build and strengthen a sense of African community, whilst critically amplifying African voices within wider civil society. The International Criminal Court, albeit with a different mandate, also gives people a voice. It gives a voice to the victims of mass crimes, and they are the true force driving our actions throughout Africa and beyond. Since its inception, the I.C.C, and in particular the Office of the Prosecutor, has continuously committed itself to confronting and combating the culture of impunity for those who commit mass crimes that tear at the very fabric of our society. My office is tireless in its efforts to seek justice for the victims of the most atrocious crimes. We have begun this crucial work hand in hand with Africa. Of the 122 states that are parties to the Rome Statute, that have ratified the Rome Statute, 34 are African states, making the continent the largest regional bloc of member states parties of the International Criminal Court. The African Union in particular is fundamentally underpinned with distinct, similar values to those of the court. This is perhaps best amplified by Article 3 of its Constitutive Act, in which the African Union highlights cooperation, coordination, and the protection of human rights as a core value it aims to encourage. As such, the African continent has been invaluable in its support and assistance of the court from its inception in 1998 and through each stage of its progress in referring situations of mass atrocities for investigations by my office, and also in cooperating with my office and in facilitating our investigations. Above all, African states have helped to pursue and arrest individuals sought by the court and have been active in the protection of our witnesses. Without such important support from our members, my office and the court, as a whole for that matter, would not be able to realize its mandate of ensuring independent and impartial justice. This committed and cooperative relationship is both appreciated and mirrored by the court. The recent opening of a second investigation into the Central African Republic is a good illustration of this mutually supportive relationship. Following escalating violence, the transitional government of the Central African Republic has requested my office in May of this year that we investigate the alleged crimes falling within the court's jurisdiction committed since August of 2012. The office is using tools at its disposal to ensure that the Central African Republic feels the full support of the international community in its commitment to ending impunity for those responsible for such hateful acts. This symbolic relationship that the court shares with its members is underpinned by our fundamental respect for sovereignty and national identity. One of the court's core values is that of complementarity, a concept firmly rooted on the understanding that states retain the primary responsibility of investigating and prosecuting crimes that fall within the jurisdiction of the court. As such, my office will intervene only in cases where national courts are either unable or they are unwilling to genuinely bring alleged criminals to justice, and provided also that other relevant legal criteria in relation to the court's jurisdiction are complied with. This high regard in which we hold the sovereignty punctuates the court's relationship with states. In Uganda, while the court is investigating and prosecuting the leaders of the Rhodes Resistance Army, we have also provided assistance to the national authorities to investigate and prosecute other individuals. In our preliminary examination into the events of the 28th September 2009 in Conakry, we are still assessing the extent to which the Guinean judiciary is able and willing to proceed with the national court processes. This includes sending various and regular missions to Guinea to assess the progress of the national investigation, encouraging and assisting where we can within our mandate. It is thus evident that the court's relationship with Africa should not be overlooked or undermined. Rather, the court should be seen as the extension of African efforts to end impunity for mass crimes. It is a crucial pillar that upholds not only our ability to ensure justice for the victims of such brutal forms of criminality, but also supports national governments to further strengthen their nation's criminal justice infrastructure. Accordingly, with the support of Africa as our contribution to African peace efforts, we are prosecuting rebels who attacked African Union peacekeepers in Hastanita, thus sending a clear message that we shall not idly stand by when fragile peace is threatened. We have successfully prosecuted Congolese warlords, Thomas Lubanga Dilo and Germain Katanga, for the horrific suffering they have inflicted on innocent civilian populations, including by targeting the most vulnerable members of society, the children. We are also awaiting trial proceedings against Boston Taganda in the same situation and against former President Laurent Gbagbo in the situation of Côte d'Ivoire. Additionally, we are prosecuting Jean-Pierre Bemba, allegedly responsible for systemic campaigns of rape in the Central African Republic, to name just another example of what the court and the office do in the interest of victims in Africa. The investigations and prosecutions are paving the way for a new guiding principle in the international system, dispelling the culture of impunity to which our society has previously been accustomed to. Together, we are forging a world in which justice and accountability can hold their rightful place, and where victims of such heinous crimes no longer feel that their coming forward will be met with empty promises. As an African who strongly believes that we are a resilient and peaceful people, I think it is important to state that while the atrocities mentioned may have taken place on African soil, that is not to say that these crimes are in any way African by nature. These horrific, vile attacks on society are instigated by a minority of people, but they violate the rights of many. We, as Africans, do not deserve such contemptible atrocities to stain the name of our great continent. It is for this reason that the relationship between the court and Africa should continue to be developed and strengthened in order to end impunity for those who threaten the security and the very essence of our society with such hateful acts. To be sure, we are certainly not turning a blind eye to situations outside Africa where grave crimes appear to have been committed. We are conducting examinations of situations including Colombia, Afghanistan, Georgia, and Ukraine, to mention a few examples. Decisions on the investigation of crimes in these situations have not yet been taken. In some other contentious situations like Gaza, my office is faced with limitations of its jurisdiction. Palestine is not a state party to the Rome Statute and has not otherwise accepted the court's jurisdiction. Lack of a full understanding of these legal limitations, but also lack of knowledge of the application of the legal framework guiding my decisions to open investigations are in a large part the reason for some of the criticisms the court has been facing regarding alleged bias against Africa. It will be clear to you by now that no such bias exists. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, while our efforts so far may have borne some fruitful results, it is our responsibility to continue to relentlessly in our work until this new world we envision becomes the rule and not just the exception. Just like those who are being honored here tonight, Africa itself, notwithstanding challenges, continue to take the lead in the fight against impunity, a feat to be celebrated, intensified, and repeated in the years to come. In conclusion, I would like to stress that the I.C.C. has never claimed the monopoly of justice. Given its limited infrastructure and resources, the I.C.C. will not be able to, and it is not designed to cope with the unlimited range of cases from all over the world, including from Africa. We are a court of last resort, and we shall cooperate with and support all genuine efforts aimed at bringing to justice those alleged to be responsible for the commission of mass crimes. Let me, however, be clear. I shall not hesitate to assume my responsibility if those alleged to be responsible for those crimes, irrespective of their status or affiliation, are not brought to face genuine and real justice. I will do whatever the court's jurisdiction is established in Africa or elsewhere. That is my mandated duty and my moral imperative. The wrath of war and violence neither spares nor is limited to race, sex, religion, or regional alliance. It does not discriminate between East, West, North, or South. Its misery on mankind has universal application, as do the laws that have been created to bring method to the madness of war and conflict. As a most proud African, let me state that it is an undeniable fact that accountability for mass crimes and the rule of law are vital to the stability, security, and prosperity of our beloved continent. This recognition was very much alive when Africa played a prominent role in the establishment of the I.C.C. And it is this truism that needs to be fully embraced again. The sacrifice of our past, the great suffering of African victims and their hopes, indeed, our collective hope for a more promising future, demand a robust commitment to international criminal justice. Let me end by reiterating my deep congratulations again and warmest wishes to the incredible men and women of Africa who, through their important contributions and leadership, continue to catapult our great continent into a new era. I thank you for your attention.